PS Vita was abandoned by Sony.
And a show Sony was destined to make.
Well, hello there, and welcome to Triangle Square, the PlayStation podcast. I am your host, Brett Beck, and alongside me, back this week from the void, Mr. Saul
Bridges. How are y'all today, this week, this Monday? And alongside next to me is Mr. Chris Figs. I don't know why I introduced you for the audience. That's funny. Alongside me is Mr.
I didn't get confused. Now you're doing it twice?
Yeah.
I'm Chris Figs.
Chris, let me ask you, are you a ladies' man?
I could be.
Okay, cool. You're going to love it when I lay these nuts on your head. Anyways, back from the void.
Do you know what? Do you know what the Spanish word for gloves is?
No.
No, you should look it up. Let me know.
Anyways, I'll do that here in a second. We're Triangle Squared PlayStation podcast.
If you guys are new to the show for some reason, stick around to be part of the community and all that stuff. But first and foremost, welcome. We are a podcast. Go ahead, Saul. Tell them.
No, I'm good.
Say it.
Say it. All right, Edward Cullen, come on.
Guantes
Nuts on your face.
That's a good one. I want to steal that one from work.
I've been debating hitting you with that one since Chris sent it to me during.
The second I said Guantes, I'm like,
All right. If you're new to the podcast, we're not typically full of these nuts jokes, but I mean, today's as good of a day as any.
I'm in a real giggly mood today. I don't know why.
Hey, that's okay. Anyway, we are a podcast that talks about games and all things gaming through the lens of being PlayStation fans. So we hope you stick around and be part of what we got going on. But we like to start the show off in a time-honored tradition here, and that is to give everyone, including ourselves, a quick update on what each other have been doing and playing in the gaming sphere. So, Chris, I'm going to let you start it off this week. What have you been playing, big homie?
It's been MLB and GTA. I just finished the story of GTA 5 again. It's a really good game. And
so
then,
are you going to keep playing
MLB.
Despite beating it?
Yeah, I think I'm going to I don't know if I'm going to say I'm going to go for the platinum, but I'm going to knock things around it and see if it happens.
That sounds like me and Gran Turismo 7.
Yeah, you're going for that platinum.
I'm absolutely going for it, but I'm more or less just knocking things around it. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. Okay, so you said that in MLB, right?
Yes. Yep.
Are you still loving MLB despite the trophies?
Yeah. I mean, trophies are annoying, but it's fine. I still haven't gotten
at the end of the day, it's still a platinum.
Yeah, it's just less.
It's less rewarding.
Yeah, you won't do My Name is Mayo, and I'm upset that the MLB platinum is extremely easy.
That is the most fair comparison in the world.
Yeah, it's almost the same.
Okay, so what you been playing? Keep everybody up to date on your 2 weeks.
This last week, I was incredibly busy and did not get to play much until this weekend. I got to play Elden Ring last night, which was Saturday night, and I played that for a good little while. I did get to play a round of Fortnite Zero Build. It's interesting. It definitely is way different than when I last played Fortnite.
So you didn't play Zero Build during the initial thing, right? You just played it whenever they've added it back permanently into the game.
Right. So last week, I was downloading some games. I re-downloaded GTA 5 to test out, see how it plays on PS5. And I downloaded Ghost Runner because it's PS Plus, and I don't want to play that game. And I was like, you know what? While I'm downloading these games, I'm going to go ahead and snag Fortnite just to try it out. And I did. And it was Fortnite. It's, I've said it before. I really like Fortnite if it didn't have building in it, and I do like it without building in it. So,
well, two things. First of all, Ghost Runner is sick. It's very challenging, but I think you'll like it.
It looks like a 3D version of Hotline Miami and Super Hot.
That's not the craziest comparison.
Like you enter, it looks
but
like
there's so much. But there's so much running involved too. It's kind of like it's almost like if you mix like old Prince of Persia and stuff like that, with the way that you just kind of have to really think about your movements and how you're going to go and get to the next spot without getting hit, because it's essentially, if you get hit, you're done.
See, that's Hotline Miami right there.
Yeah, so
And Super Hot.
That's fun. I like that, but it was challenging, but it was also like when you finally got it, you're like, yes, I did it.
It's all sword based, right? Like you
don't have a gun, but they always do. So you've got to be very smart about the way that you approach a situation. And sometimes that means having to like snake around the level back through so that you get the ideal path to where they can't hit you in the
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty fun. And it's graphically a really interesting game too. But going to my brain went dead. The other game that you were talking about. Fortnite, yes. Having literally never played Fortnite in my life, the closest I've gotten was somebody was talking about it, and I downloaded it more or less just to get them to shut up, if I'm being honest. And then we never played it anyway. So I was like, all right, and I just deleted it. Outside looking in, what do you think it is about Fortnite that works when you take the building out? Because I don't mean this in any way. I just mean that from outside looking in, the building seems like the thing that really differentiated it. And I'm curious what it is that differentiates it, or at least makes it so good that it doesn't matter that the differentiating quality is gone from the game.
Right. Well, Fortnite is incredibly polished. As a matter of fact, I would argue that there's only 3 polished Battle Royale games.
Yeah.
That's Fortnite, Apex, Warzone.
Okay.
Fortnite is is the only one of those 3 as well that has third person, like fire.
Yeah.
And it is the one that is the most like kid friendly, because the amount of pop culture that goes into Fortnite is absolutely ridiculous. I was surprised to see like Doctor Strange, and there's other things in there I forgot. Like yesterday, I opened it up just to go through and look of all the people you could be.
Well, like
John Wick.
I assume, and I don't know, being people, this is one of the big questions. Does being people actually entail anything different?
No, they're just skins.
Okay.
So like Spider-Man was one of them.
But am I wrong in that they introduced, I thought I remembered seeing someone post a video of like you could spiderweb swing.
That was probably, so like they have events like when they had like the Thanos event, like a gauntlet would hit the ground and like you could grab it and you would literally become Thanos. Like you could like literally fly around the map and stuff as Thanos, and you'd not use weapons and you're big. I would think that they either had a mode for that, because there's actually a lot. The last time I played Fortnite, there was just one mode, and that was, or 2. There was the Fortnite versus the world, or zombies versus the world, or whatever, and then the Battle Royale mode. They're the original mode, like the original what Fortnite was made.
Yeah, like I remember that I've seen Fortnite played the most before it was ever a Battle Royale.
Like a tower defense game.
Yeah, well, that was when Jonathan bought it when he lived here, and I watched him play it.
Yeah, but see, back then, it was just those 2 modes. Well, like I started it last night, and there was like a Gran Theft Auto style mode. Like I think there was an Among Us style mode. It looked like.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's a lot.
The people from Among Us were upset that the game essentially copied their idea on a bigger budget. I don't remember what anything happened from that, but I remember that being a contentious moment.
Well, Among Us literally copied the thing, so
yeah,
I don't want to hear that.
The argument at the time was how they were the first people to bring it to a video game form, and that
Prop Hunt.
Epic was. Yeah, again, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that's what they were saying.
Like Prop Hunt obviously is not the same thing. Like because you're debating, but Prop Hunt is like the true, like I'm gonna be something that I shouldn't be to blend in and hide.
Yeah,
from people trying to find me. But yeah, like it was okay.
Did Prey do that?
It did. Prey did have the new.
If Prey did not have a Prop Hunt multiplayer thing, then what a wasted thing.
2015.
Oh,
Prey.
God, I don't even remember when Prey 2 came out, or Prey.
2000. It was either 2015 because Doom was 2016, right?
Yeah,
2015 or 2017.
17. I think you're right.
I don't think because it had to have been the year before or after.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
But so yeah, I was kind of surprised by that. And then last week, well, there was another game I've been playing. It's kind of on the couch because I've been reading Attack on Titan on my tablet, and that's pretty good. I'm catching up to the point of like where I am getting into new content because I've read it before.
Oh, okay.
And I kind of stopped because it slowed down. But now knowing how far the story goes and it's done, I'll give it a chance because I didn't know how long it was going to go across.
Yeah, Chris and I were talking about Attack on Titan earlier this week, and I was saying that I stopped watching, and he's like, "That's crazy. I think it's one of the best openings or whatever," and all these different things. But I was like, it's at the same time, I was watching it, and I definitely wasn't going to read it at that point for sure. I was watching it when it was brand new, like 2013.
In 2013, it had an amazing opening, and then it got into the part of like a slice of life kind of style anime. Like right after that, am I wrong, Chris? Like, do I remember that correctly?
I don't think he's watched it. I think he's just.
I've never watched the anime. I don't watch it.
Okay.
Either way, my point is that
it started
at the time. It was that idea of like, even if I really love this, it's like I can't binge it, and so my brain is just going to forget it. And literally, I've never watched it since.
It started off real well, like it started off very strong, and then it slows down just a little bit. And if you don't keep up with the slowdown, because it shoots off again, and it stays at that peak, that's where a lot of people drop off at. But it has one of my favorite manga transitions in history, where it's in like the second or third volume. I think it's actually the second volume. I think it's the first chapter in it, I think, is where an Eren Yeager, he's sitting on top of the wall. And this is after the Titans have attacked already. And he's talking about, he's like, humanity will be saved. And literally the next page is the Colossal Titan standing behind him, staring at him. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty well done. But yeah, I have been playing. I've restarted Final Fantasy VIII on my Switch.
Yeah.
Because, I talked about it with you before. I talked about it with Sean before. That's one of my least favorite Final Fantasy games, but I haven't played it as an adult. So I'm going to give it the fair shot as an adult.
For a lot of people, it was so different than every Final Fantasy that came around it.
Well, okay, so my thought process is back then is like this was back when I was like farming like chocobo races and stuff in Final Fantasy 7, doing the ultimate weapon and doing max damage. Well, I'm sitting here thinking, well, in Final Fantasy 8, because I played a good chunk of Final Fantasy 8, I did not beat it.
Okay, yeah.
But I still remember the cast pretty well, like Zell, Laguna, Quistis or Quintus, but yeah, Renoa, Cypher. But that game has a flaw to me, and that's where the game levels with you. But I realize that there's a solution for that, and that's using the not Gambit system. It's whatever their system is called. I just now got Quetzalcoatl, but it's the it's the system, like the battle system, like the way you assign the magic to your character, and then that's how you overlevel the game. And as a kid, I didn't understand that.
It's weird. 9 times out of 10, there's the occasional game that I kind of get it, but I think games are so weird when they use level scaling because it inherently makes you feel like you're not getting any more powerful, because it's like everything continues to do roughly the same percentage of damage.
Yep. Me and Seth were talking about that yesterday with Skyrim. Yeah. It's like Skyrim, there is, I said, if you really walk out of the cave of Skyrim and you can go anywhere on the map and you encounter, not only for the most part at level 1, you encounter the same enemies because the way Elder Scrolls game works, but they're all the same difficulty. Yep. No matter where you are, regions are not harder. Like you can go across the map from where you spawn and you would think, oh man, I'm really far. This is going to be a different world. And there might be some like regional enemies, but for the most part, it's still bandits.
Well, giants. I remember that was the first game that ever did it too, because like Oblivion did not level scale, nor did Morrowind.
Well, Oblivion did do the thing though, like where you couldn't see like glass armor and ebony armor and Daedric armor until you hit certain levels.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's really what I meant by that is like you wouldn't see certain enemies. Like the first way to get Daedric armor in Oblivion, I think you have to be level 50. I think it's either 50 or 25. You have to be pretty high.
Well, Daedric armor you can start getting as soon as you go into the Oblivion portals in Oblivion. Like the actual portals.
Not the actual Daedric armor.
Oh, what is it not? I thought do you get ebony in those?
No.
I really thought it was Daedric because I know you can get Daedric weaponry.
You could get
those, sure.
You get Dremora weaponry in those.
Yeah, that's right. Dremora.
But yeah, like those games do that kind of weird thing, and they all have all done it. That's a quirk they have. But I don't remember Final Fantasy VIII story. I remember Squall and Renoa being in love, and I remember Laguna being a gunny edgelord, and Cypher being like Cypher in every Final Fantasy game, and Zell being a fist combat guy. I don't remember Quintus or whatever her name is, the teacher. I don't remember what she did. It's been so long since I played it because I literally played it with my cousin Brett, coincidentally enough, on his PS1. But what have you been playing? What have you been up to? That's been it for me.
I don't think I've played anything else besides Gran Turismo 7. I played RuneScape. I got back into, as I do every couple of weeks, questing on RuneScape and having a good time. And then, of course, the Gran Turismo 7 update has came and made my life so much easier, and also brought a lot of fun events to the game. So the newest update has added endurance races that essentially you have, or there's a bunch of challenges. The ones I've been doing most recently is that there's one where you have a 30-minute time limit and there are 8 laps, and there's fuel consumption, tire consumption, all that. So you have to, it's way more complicated. Yeah, because you actually have to think about what tires you're going to use, because some tires are quicker and give you better grip, but they wear out quicker. So you have to pit. And if you go to the pits, you lose time and you lose positions. And then there is fuel consumption, and there's these little MDF, MFDs, whatever they are, that you can switch between that show you like a radar, the track layout. Radar will let you see what cars are to the left or right of you, so you can kind of have a feeling of what's around you.
Okay.
Then there's one that's for fuel consumption, and you can on the fly adjust it from a value of 1 to 6, 1 being more power but more fuel burn, and 6 being really lean but not as powerful. And you actually, during the race, you've got to like crank, there's a little red dial, and as you're racing you can crank it up and be at 6, so you're lean whenever you're not around any other cars, and then when you need to overtake somebody you can crank down to 4 to give yourself more power. It's involved. Yes, it is, but it's been fun. And if you, there's 8 laps, but whenever the 30-minute timer gets up, whatever lap you're on becomes the last lap, so it's like you got to try and stay as good as you can, but it's a 30-minute race.
Yeah,
so it's complicated, but if you get first place, your reward is $550,000 before even a clean race bonus, and that's a huge increase on what was given out before. So I've finally been able to buy one of the 3 multiple $1,000,000 cars I need for one of the trophies for the 3 legendary cars. So as Chris said, I'm going for that platinum. I'm gunning it down. But it's just going to be a bit. I need to get back to doing sport races and stuff so I can get the Autobahn mileage trophy and 50 sport races. I thought I originally would have had it this week, but then I ended up kind of just, every time I was playing, I was trying to perfect that little 30-minute race and get some money built up, because the cars in the legend car thing rotate out. So there was one that I was close within reason to. I had 4 million and it was 6.2. And I was like, I can earn 2 million in a few days if I just put my head down and do it. So that's been it for the most part. But moving along, we're going to go ahead and hop into the community's take so we can get your thoughts on the topic that we gave last week, as well as, I guess, give Saul an opportunity to give any thoughts he may want to in regard to the PS Plus tiers as they were. And of course, I forgot to pull these things up ahead of time, so my bad. But essentially, the question was, how do you feel about the new PlayStation Plus tiers? And which one do you think you'll be subbing to, if any? And I put this out very late last night when I realized, while watching Sonic, as soon as we got done watching the new Sonic movie, I was like, I got to put that out. But we got at least a handful of answers, so thank all of you who did. We have Mr. No Fate here, who says, I like how Sony says no one wants backwards compatibility, but yet puts all the PS1 to 3 games behind the biggest paywall. They clearly don't want our attention taken away from the monetizations that games offer today, which is an interesting response, but I think it tells that he doesn't like the fact, and I think this is a big point, that at least as we've been told so far, backwards compatibility seems to be locked entirely behind your tier, which is something that was brought up by TT Dog over on our Discord, one of our patrons, and get a kind of gut check from you guys on that. How do y'all feel about, at least currently, and Sony could come out and say, no, if you have the disc, you can put it in and it'll work, as long as it's a PS1 or a PS2 game.
They're not going to.
I don't think they will either, but I'm curious. But do y'all think that that's what do you think about it? Like, do you think that most people are just like, it's unfortunate, but most people are going to lay down and take it, or that's Sony's thought process, or what? Because there's clearly no reason that you can't just put the disc in and go if you own it, if these games are up and working. And I think a lot of people are comparing this to Xbox's backwards compatibility, to where if you own the disc, you put it in and it downloads a digital copy of the game. There's a lot of work that goes into that, but Chris, what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, it would be nice, but it doesn't seem like that. I don't know. I find backwards compatibility to be overrated to begin with, so this doesn't really bother me. I would love to take my collection of PS3 games and put them in my PS5, but I don't know. That's not why I bought a PS5. And
I mean, yeah, that's a fair point.
and not.
I mean, you still
I mean,
have a PS3.
I do, yeah, but I don't think that comparing it to Microsoft is valid because Sony is advertising more backwards compatible games. I think triple what Microsoft even has available. So unless I'm wrong, but it's I
Well,
mean it
I guess
seems like
where do
significantly
you?
more.
The problem right now that at least from what I see is I don't think that there's nothing that hints toward a count. There's just what systems, but there's
Doesn't it say 300 to 400 backwards compatible games?
not that I saw, but if that is what it says, then your point's completely valid. But I didn't see that.
I'll look it up, but
yeah,
I don't have a
interesting.
problem with it being behind the paywall because it wasn't there. So you could either not get it or pay for it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, at some point. But this would be one of the moments where I don't necessarily know that I agree that it's something that's not comparable to Microsoft. I mean, this is pretty much bit for bit if you think about going back from original Xbox. It's just different in how they're actually pushing it out in terms of marketing it as a feature.
No, my point was more that Microsoft has a limited number, and it seems to me, if I was reading it correctly, there's a lot more on there's going to be a lot more on the PS service. So Microsoft is a very curated and specifically made thing where.
Well, sure. And to that end, I agree that if they have less in the long run, then it is nice to have more. But at the same time, I think that quantity shouldn't necessarily take away from just a feature level that says, or at least in terms of shouldn't be able to be comparative, being able to put your disc in when the games are already there. They're already worked out to do this. And for Microsoft's side, you can either do it behind a paywall with things like Game Pass, or just buy the games outright. Which also remains to be seen here. Will the games be able to be bought outright, or will they be literally put behind the paywall, no other way to attach them so that they have a reason to drive people toward this premier tier? Or if you own the game, then put it in and it works it out from there. But I mean, quantity definitely matters. But then there's also on top of that, does quantity of games overpower what some people like of enhanced backwards compatibility? And that's just another feature within Sony's version of what they're doing, insofar as the information we have that is not going to be there.
I don't know. I think enhanced backwards compatibility would make the argument even less that you should be able to put the discs in personally. But this says extra has 400 games in it, and then premium has 340 more games, including PS1, PS2, PSP. So you can take that wording however you want. I took it as they were
PS1,
adding
PS2, PSP, and PS3, right? Because PS3 games are not in the middle tier. It's the one thing I remember. So if you look at what PS Now has,
tier. It's
exactly.
PSP,
So if you,
PS1, PS2.
So in that sense, it's depending. That's why I don't know what games they're adding. This is essentially PS Now already at this point. Because if you're not including the PS3 games that are on PS Now, that's a significant chunk of PS Now's like 700 games.
Yeah.
So
sure.
Ostensibly they're only adding, because they went from saying 700 games to 750 with this. They're only adding 50 games from PS1, PS2, and PSP, which is not it's not a lot. I guess you get, 15, 16 games from each system if you just wanted to try and break it up three ways, which they probably won't do. Either way, Saul, what's your feelings here?
And just in general with the news of the services, I mean, it's kind of like they didn't really change a whole lot except for the final tier. Kind of just roll PS Plus and PS Now together, which is kind of what I think everybody expected. So,
yeah,
nothing super exciting there, I think, in terms of the change up. With this, it's interesting if you don't compare it to anything, and you think about the value, because it's $120 for a year, right?
Mm-hmm. For the Premier tier.
Premier, yeah. Mm-hmm. For the amount of backwards compatibility you get, to get PS Plus games, to get the the way to play online, all that stuff. You could say that that's worth it. Singling out backwards compatibility games, though, being locked behind it is interesting. It's kind of what Nintendo just did with their $50 yearly thing of like.
Is that what it moved up to? I knew it went higher.
It's $50.
Okay.
Which I got technically a discount because I got the Animal Crossing DLC when they had it, and it was $50 for both. So it was like, instead of paying $25 for Animal Crossing DLC and $50 for the online, I got both for $25 technically.
Sure.
But yeah, it's interesting. I do think that he does bring up a fair point about how, like Jim Ryan talking about nobody wants to play older games, but then when they finally make it available, they hide it behind what is the most expensive tier.
Yeah.
I do think that that's kind of an interesting point to make that I hadn't thought of until now. So I would have to stew on that longer. But in terms of for what it is now, I'm sure that there was loopholes in the beginning. I've heard of like loopholes of getting it cheaper. There's always ways to get these services cheaper. But that doesn't excuse the fact that services can be locked behind higher payrolls, or not payrolls, but pay tiers. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't thought about it in that way yet, about it being technically the only way you can do this is locked behind $120 a year. And at that point, is it worth it? Like, they haven't officially had a list come out yet of everything that's on it. So I can't judge if it's worth it or not. You give me every Final Fantasy game that's come out on PlayStation 1, which is most of them.
Even though at this point, most of them have been remade to some degree.
Okay. Well, the pixel remasters I can't get.
Yeah, true.
So I want to play through 1, 2, 3. On my Switch, I have 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. I have, and those are my favorite Final Fantasy games, minus 6.
Sure.
Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions, PSP game, that better be on there. Crisis Core will not be on there. I already taken that out of my heart.
See, that's
My Sleep.
You're going towards exactly the thing that I was thinking, which is this becomes valuable to a very select group of people who like more niche games, so who are big fans of PSP and stuff like that. If you can get games like, go to PS2, if you can get games like the rare dot hack games that weren't remade or remastered, if you can get like Xenogears from PS2 that people loved, if you can get like the Dark Cloud's actually, they had the PS2 version for the PS4 Classic, so that wouldn't surprise me.
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah,
which they're gone now.
Dark Cloud 1 and 2, I'm pretty sure.
You can't buy those now, right?
I'm pretty sure you still can.
Okay, I thought I read that when they announced that the service was the thing, you can't buy PS2 Classics. They took PS2 Classics off the market.
Ooh, if they did, then
I read that wrong?
I think you're confusing GTA's PS2 Classics being removed.
That might be what it is
for this, but I'll check. I'm checking right now.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I might be confusing the two.
But yeah, do games like that, and then for like PSP, do games that never got digital releases, so they've
Dark
been
Cloud's
lost to the ether.
Okay, cool.
Nice. But yeah, Crisis Core.
Birth by Sleep.
Yeah, dude, like all of those types of games, which is like some of the absolute best PSP
Goku games were fun.
If you pull this off the right way, this can become really valuable to a very core group of people.
Killzone Liberation.
So,
dude, Killzone Liberation. I really hope it's on there.
Well, it's not Vita games, but
yeah. So finish up, and then, or Chris, if it's okay if Chris interjects right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that Crisis Core is not going to be on this service.
No, it's not.
No, wrong. I don't think it will either.
Well, it's coming back because the GeForce leak we can confirm is 100% fact. So Crisis Core is coming, but it's definitely not going to be on the service.
The real question is, what is Crisis Core?
Yeah, because
that GeForce has, right? Is it a remaster? Is it a remake? Is it
a chapter gonna be in Final Fantasy 7.2?
Yeah, or is it gonna be like a standalone DLC that you can play without it? That's kind of like they did for the Final. I haven't played it yet, so my brain is skipping on the name. But what's the Final Fantasy 7
Integrate
chapter?
Integrate.
Yeah. So is it going to be like that? Is it going to be like a DLC for Part 2 that's like Crisis Core? Are they going to do it before Part 2 comes out so that you can play it, and then for people who didn't get to play it, they can understand how this plays into the larger story as they continue to break out?
Yeah.
I don't want to say too much more because
are they going to change it because of what the Final Fantasy 7 has done? Who knows?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions.
So add Dementors to it.
But yeah, my final thoughts on it is that similar to what the way the indies took away or the indies came to Switch, and it kind of they stopped going to Vita, so Switch became a main console for that. It's kind of become that way with Switch of being like the best way for me to play older games.
Sure.
That's what I'm waiting for Pixel remasters on, to be able to play 1 through 6 on my Switch, to be able to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, not 9, but yeah, 9, 10, and then 12. To play 11 Final Fantasy games, all at, like to have that ability at once is amazing. Now just give me Tactics back on Switch. But give me War of the Lines on my PS4. I don't like tactics based games on consoles, like home consoles. I like those on handhelds.
Final Fantasy Tactics or War of the Lines, neither of the actual original game have been on any non-PlayStation console, right? It was PS1 phone. And then War of the Lines was PSP.
Yeah, I was gonna say it is for sure on phones.
They did put Final Fantasy Tactics on phone.
It is. Yeah, I have it on my iPhone.
Nice. That's a great game.
It is. I'm gonna download it again. Yeah. So that's pretty much the ending of my thoughts on this.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. You know, what would be the absolute wildest, like crazy slap in the world, is if somehow Nintendo was able to go to Square and get them to release a remaster of Crisis Core on Switch. That would be the wildest thing. I almost wish that that's how things would happen, because if I worked at Nintendo, I would almost be like, what's a petty thing we can do? Let's look at what PlayStation fans have been asking for and not getting, and let's do it. Oh, they've been wanting to replay War of the Lines, but Sony hasn't even remotely talked to Square about it. Hey, Square, if we give you this much money, can you just, can we get War of the Lines remastered on the Switch over here?
I'd buy it for $60. I would buy it for $60.
That's what I mean.
I would buy it. They could give me I
guarantee you right now
an $80 collector's edition with no cart. Just give me a statue and I'll buy it.
I guarantee you, if they did Crisis Core remastered, they could charge $60 for it all day long, and people would be like, "Thank you, Nintendo, thank you."
I say, look, just downloaded it.
As long as they do it better than they did Chrono Cross.
Chrono Crosses seem to be a weird thing of people talking about it being fantastic and no issues, and other people being like, this game is rife with bugs and performance issues.
Yeah, I was watching the Digital Foundry thing, and the PS4 version runs worse than the PS1 version. So,
you know what? I want to make just while I'm seeing it right now. Ivalice and Final Fantasy 12 and Tactics are the best form of Final Fantasy worlds there's ever been.
Ivalice is also in. What is that game called? Hold on.
Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, Tactics Ogre?
No, it's a completely Vagrant Story. Vagrant Story.
Yeah, I was gonna say Joan d'Arc, but yeah, you're right. It is Vagrant Story. I get those two mixed up.
Where was Joan d'Arc? What was that?
I don't remember, but I get that in Vagrant Story mixed up.
Yeah, Vagrant Story is definitely the one I was.
I'm pretty sure Ivalice is in Tactics Ogre too.
All right, then.
Pretty sure. I think. If not, Tactics Ogre, for those that don't know, Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy Tactics 1 and War of the Lions and Tactics Advance all share the same director and art style creator.
Yeah. Liam over on Twitter says premium for the classics, which I'm still very curious to see what those end up being. We have Josh Ayers, one of our patrons over on Facebook, says, I'll sub to the deluxe version as it's the best one here. I think it's a smart idea spinning the service into tiers, as it can finally not be a regional thing and can be a worldwide platform. I hope Sony don't give a time on when their first party titles will join it and don't make an identifiable cadence. These moves will disincentivize spending money on games which the industry doesn't need. Okay. Yep. All right. So talking specifically about lack of day and date and how that doesn't bother them. We have Joey McPherson. He says, I'm probably doing the mid tier. I doubt the top tier will have all the old games that I want to play. Just recently picked up a Series X. Last Xbox system I had was the original. For as much credit they get for backwards compatibility, there's tons of games I wanted to get and they're not backwards compatible, like NFL Street, NBA Street, Need for Speed Underground 1 and 2, and I wanted to get some old SmackDown versus Raw wrestling games. And that speaks to what Chris was talking about. At the end of the day, the approach that Microsoft took is more involved, because they always bring whatever game they're doing back in a digital format, which means licensing comes into play. They have to work with publishers. They want to make sure that it works and then gives it some form of enhanced backwards compatibility. So while it's nice to have that, it does mean that you get an incredibly curated thing. Mm-hmm. And that does mean that some of these old games that are absolute classics to me and you may not be on there. I've said, right, I wish that the Xbox Series X, or any of them would have had a enhanced backwards compatible version of Midnight Club Los Angeles, and I could just play at 4K because that game's essentially perfect. I don't need anything else to happen to it. Essentially, if you make it run at 4K, I don't even need a remaster, baby. That game's already good to go. So, but that's not where we are, and we didn't get that. So there's a part of me that, even though I have a PS3 and I have the game, there's a part of me that is like, it would be cool if Sony was like, yeah, you like that game? All right, good. Here it is on our service, and you can do it. But as we already know, it'd be streaming for PS3 titles.
I can't even play Jet Set Radio Future, a pack-in game, on my Xbox.
A partnered Xbox exclusive with Microsoft and Sega, and they don't have it anywhere. I was really surprised at that.
Best game on that console.
That would seem like the thing that you would go toward immediately.
Yeah, the first one. Hey, here's what was it? Project Gotham Racing and Jet Set Radio Future. I remember the 2-pack.
Project Gotham Racing 3 or whatever it was for 3. I actually like that game a lot.
Yeah, it's
totally weird that you say that. Yeah, exactly. I didn't pay anything for it, but it was a fun time. I haven't thought of that game in a long time. Like, just like all the people just have IP that they just go, man, we're not going to do anything with that.
Yeah, like Raise Us Hell.
Oh man,
great game.
What a wild time. Old games are really interesting. So let's see. We got one more that I'm going to be doing here, or two quick ones because they're essentially the Snow Jedi, one of our new patrons, or he's back to being a patron. Thank you, sir. He says, I like them. I would subscribe to the mid-range one. And then Awesome Dave 1337 says, I'll be subbing to the middle tier, but if they have trophy support for the legacy games, I'll jump on the highest tier in a heartbeat. Indeed. Yeah, so that's over on our Discord if you want to be part of that. But last one on Discord comes from Rude Days 93, one of our longtime patrons. He says, right now, I'm very meh on the tiers. A lot of that being we just don't know the games yet, and not even what games we'll be getting demos for, or time trials, as they're saying. I'm just staying on the first tier for now, and maybe occasionally jumping to the middle tier if, say, it's just cheaper to play a game like Returnal for a month instead of outright buying it. I feel like these tiers are much more for a hardcore PlayStation fan, and as for a casual fan like me who really only buys first party and a few other exclusive third parties, there really isn't a hook to go higher on the tier list yet. I think that's a pretty fair standpoint. And that actually is the way I word this. As interesting as it is, the highest tier, I would almost imagine that Sony knows that it's only for hardcore PlayStation fans. Like, I doubt that they intend most people to go to the highest tier. If they do, I'd be interested because I don't see the casual appeal to it yet. Realistically,
so casual appeal is 740 games for free. So arguably for casual gamers, spending that $20 is the best deal you can get on a PlayStation, even if you don't play the backwards compatible games. Just those 400 PS4 and PS5 games alone is enough, which I guess would be the extra tier. But
that's my point. Is the highest tier really only seems to be there for the people who are hardcore PlayStation fans and want to play these old games. You may get the occasional casual person bumping into it because they see that, this old game I used to play is on there, and they jump in for nostalgia, and maybe they'll keep it for a year or for a month or whatever it be, and then bounce back out. But I think that the people who will really be going hardcore for it are going to be people who want to play the classics like Liam, because that's really the differentiating factor for the highest tier.
Well, it's one of those things where, like, I feel like if you're buying into the middle tier, you might as well spend the $2 extra and buy into the premium tier. That's the thing that's weird about the
20 more. That'd be my thing. Is like, if you're going for a yearly, why would you look at the 99 and then look at the 120? I mean, I'm wrong. There's people who have to really budget, but for somebody who doesn't really need to do that, I would be surprised if you wouldn't just go on the off chance that there's an old game that gets either rotated into the service or whatever, or some extra benefit they get. I'll spend the extra 20 right now.
Yeah.
Right. But still, we'll see. I still think that the overarching outward facing thing of it is that it's primarily for people who are big fans, and everybody else will just be might as well in case we get something extra out of it and it's cheap enough, or middle tier is fine for me. And if they show something I like, I'll jump up into high tier. So A question we were asked, and we were kind of discussing it internally, and thinking that we've kind of done something close to it, but we'll go ahead and do a quick recap. Joey McPherson over on Facebook sent in a question. He said, question for next episode, if there was one more tier in the new PS Plus for, let's say, $300 a year for all of the other tiers benefits along with day and date games and maybe a subscription to Crunchyroll, would you choose that tier? Would it be worth the money? And this is clearly just a made up price and everything just to kind of get the thing. But essentially, if a higher priced tier that was significantly higher, let's even just double it. Let's say from $120 a year to $240. Would that be something that would actually entice any of the three of us? The hard thing about day and date, realistically, is that you never know how heavy a year a first party output will have. Mm-hmm. And so if you're paying this extra cost, one year it might be amazing because Sony may put out 8, 9, 10 games and you really get to benefit from that. But then the next year, the value seems a lot less when you get God of War and Bloodborne 2. And not that those aren't amazing games, but at some point it's like, well, if I got 2 games that would have cost me $70 each, that's $140. I spent an extra $120 at that, imaginary $240 point. At what point would I have just been better off to stick with what I had before, be it middle tier maybe at $99, and just buy these games as I want for that year? So I think that Microsoft even deals with that. And even though it's a big, I think Game Pass has that thing where a lot of people are like, oh, day and date first party games. But there are long periods of time where Microsoft just doesn't have any new first party titles hitting it. So if we're looking at that specific feature, it doesn't really move the needle for me in any big way. There would be years where it might seem worth it. Chris, what do you think?
I don't think it's worth it, personally.
I would say if Sony was ever going to do day and date, this would be what I would think that they would do. They would make it something so high just so they could say they offer it, and that if they get it, it benefits them. You know what I mean? I don't know about that high, but I think that they would definitely price it up high on purpose so they could be like, look, we offer it, but for most people, it's probably going to still be a better idea for you to just buy the games outright.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it's just don't bother doing it to me. I don't know.
I agree.
I don't think that's you need to be in the price that it is now, or you just don't do it. Because past that point, you're just going to get me for $60 every time. It's the same way in a lot of ways. I would rather pay the $17 a month than the $120 a year. It's just the $17 a month I'd rather pay than a block of $120 once.
Really?
That's dumb. Yeah.
Do you do your PS Plus by the month?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah, because I would rather pay $10
your prerogative.
than pay $60 at one time. That's just how I am.
But then you pay $120 across the whole year if you never cancel
$120 across a year and not $60 at one shot.
Fair enough.
It doesn't make any sense. It's just less money you spend at once, so it feels. Well,
it does make sense for people who really need to budget and can't afford the $60 at once. It might make more sense for their budget to go, I can squeeze $10 a month out of my monthly budget rather than I can squeeze 1 month of $60. But then I would just kind of, if it was me, I'd be like, well, I'll squeeze the $60 now, but then all these other months I get $10 back into my budget. That would be the way I would justify it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is also from I haven't been making the kind of money I am now for a while, so it was one of those things where $60 was a fifth of my paycheck, for a long time. Yeah. So it was worth much better to spend the 10. I could probably
I remember when I started with PS Plus and was buying it for a year back when it was on PS3 as just an extra service.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, nice. I remember I was working at the hospital here in town, and my paychecks for every 2 weeks were $499. So $60 was a lot of money.
Exactly.
But I still did it. And I still thought it was a big benefit. And I got to play the new Tomb Raider because of it about 3 or 4 months after launch. So it's interesting how we have some of these conversations. But I actually feel like if we're looking at these value, Sony was really ahead of the curve on that. Like I got to play a lot of games pretty close to launch because of an extra additive service that wasn't even remotely required at the time, and that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. I think that puts that off. So thank you all for being part of that. Remember, if you want to be part of the community's take, you can head over to our social media platforms. On Twitter, we are at Triangle SQRD. You can find us on Facebook at the group Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. Ask to be put into there, and we will gladly accept you. Or you can find us in the Discord where everyone is here and be part of the conversation in our dedicated community's take section, as well as talk about things we talk about in the podcast in the podcast open discussion section with all of our other friends that are in the Discord. But moving along into the news, first thing up, Housemarque, the developer behind Returnal, took home a lot of honors at this week's BAFTA Awards, with Returnal taking home the award for Game of the Year, Audio, and Best Performance going to the star of the game, Jane Perry. That's awesome. I'm sure Sony likes buying a studio and then immediately seeing that studio be showered with awards. That is exactly what you'd want.
The Sony effect.
Well, it's when Sony's putting that much of a bigger chunk of money behind a Housemarque game, which Returnal had to have been far more expensive than any Housemarque game that came before it,
For sure.
just by nature of the step up in quality. And I won't say quality because all their games have been good, but specifically like art style and being fully 3D rendered and everything. I get what they're going for, and it was a big step up. So congratulations to them. Next up, some PlayStation users are reportedly finding that some classics, PS classics, are no longer playable and have, quote, expired. We don't know the reason, but Kotaku suggests that this may be a result of holder dates and a bug in the system. Hopefully Sony rectifies the situation, but we were not personally able to confirm this on our own. Yeah, Chris, we weren't able to confirm this on our own.
No, I mean, I did the legwork to find out if this was true, so you can laugh. But.
Yeah. No, so it is true. Technology is really weird. There's an arbitrary date that you have to set for any system that tells it when the beginning of its life was. And they just, most of the time, there's a random date chosen. And I remember that this has caused issues elsewhere too. I don't know if any of you remember the infamous original Zune that Microsoft put out at, what was it, 2010? Something happened where New Year passed and every Zune just stopped working because something to do with its internal calendar and clock system couldn't account for a leap year or something that happened weird, and it just could not work. And they had to like go through and update it, and everybody had to plug their Zunes in and actually update them to get them to work because they didn't know that this was going to happen. So these things definitely can happen, and sometimes they are a result of something weird. But this one's very odd because it was like saying the game expired in 1969 and stuff, which is pretty interesting.
That's probably the placeholder.
I imagine this will be fixed, and I don't imagine this is anything too crazy. If it becomes something more and these games actually are no longer available for some crazy reason, this would be a really weird step in a new direction, because never have I seen on the gaming side of things you buying a game and then having your ability to play it digitally revoked. They pull games from the store because they lose the ability to sell them from a legal standpoint. But this would be a big shift. I don't think that that's going to happen, if we're being honest, but
no,
it's unfortunate.
Unless it has to do with the new PS Plus.
I actually thought about that. Is this happening because they're moving the licenses for this somewhere else as part of the PS Plus tiers? And whenever it went to try and check in and do a license check to renew the license, it was like, we couldn't find it, so we're just going to default back to the placeholder date.
Maybe.
That would make
definitely
sense.
Possible.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Next thing up, Sony's purchase of Bungie may already be bearing fruit. New job listings for the studio suggest that they are staffing for a Destiny animated TV show. The job listing is for a senior producer, linear media, with expected skills being experienced with animation and scripted television. I'm curious who they're going to pull in to do this, or if this is going to be a Sony animation project.
A Studio Ghibli Destiny show.
Man, if I'm being honest, whoever it is that's behind Arcane, if I was Sony, I'd be like, yeah, can we get these people?
Well, they hired the Riot Games guy as their lead for that, so maybe.
Hey, maybe. Regardless of what anybody thinks about anything else, which that show's fantastic in my opinion, but the show looks incredible, and but so does Sony Animation. Here's the thing: it's almost everything that Sony Animation's done, even things that I don't really care for, like Hotel Transylvania, they still look fantastic. They're a great animation studio.
We can get a sick Imagine Dragons song out of
it. Yeah, everybody wants to be my enemy.
Great song.
I'll be honest, I don't even care for Imagine Dragons, but in the show, I didn't mind that either. I was just kind of like, oh, here we are.
Nobody likes Imagine Dragons, but I do really like that song. So good
but
for
you
them.
do love it when you imagine dragging my nuts across your
head. I knew it.
It's like a snake in the grass.
Oh, man. Okay, let's see. This is interesting. I don't really. It's weird because, like, I guess this is a good time to talk about Sonic being a good recent example. The new Sonic movie I thought was excellent in understanding what it was based off of the first movie, and then really more so than the first movie by far, taking the lore and ideas of the game series and putting it into the movie in a far more heavy-handed way, so that if you don't know much about Sonic, you get to learn it all. And it's cool. And if you do know a lot about Sonic, it's just awesome to see it in play. It's also just a little weird when you just feel like you're being inundated with games as movies and games as TV. Even when it's done well, it's just kind of like, it feels like a lot of it's happening at once. But if they were going to do a Destiny show, I would say that some of the contention around the Halo series is probably proof of why you needed to go animated with it instead of being live action.
Or you could definitely just respect the source material. One of the two. You know, it's not that. Make your choice. Animated.
But I think considering that Destiny is far more space magic than Halo really was, I think that trying to go live action with Destiny would be a hard move. And I think that you would end up having some janky stuff.
The only way to go live action with Destiny would be to do something like before the blue people show up and stuff. Which I don't know if that's even interesting.
Before the Awoken. It would be really weird to make a Destiny TV show where it's just what the cataclysm that happened before the Guardian ever even came. Would it even be worth being called Destiny at that point?
I mean, it's still Destiny lore.
Well, yeah.
It's still Destiny lore. You're right.
Destiny lore is really cool.
Destiny lore is really cool. You know what it's going to be? It's going to be an animated series about how the light came and visited the Fallen or whatever they're called, and how the light went away from them. That actually wouldn't surprise me if they went that direction.
No.
But we'll see. Let's see. Gran Turismo 7's big rebalancing update is out, as I mentioned. Payouts and credits gain are vastly improved. Some races being increased by 100%. The new races were also added along with an increase in the max amount of credits a player can hold at once. One of the really important things of this that I thought was cool, and I'm glad they did, is that circuit experiences, where you can go to a track and then go down to circuit experiences, and there's little challenges that you can complete until you get up to a one-lap attack where you have to get the entire lap within a certain time. Previously, those didn't offer you any rewards. And whenever they updated the game, they did. And even if you'd already completed them, you just go back in, hit the circuit experience, load in for a second, and then back out, and it would reward you for the entire suite, which I thought was awesome. And that was a big reason I was able to get to that 6 million, because I was already worked up to 5 million. And then I saw that was a thing, and I was like, wait a minute, I did 15 or so of those. And I went in and got almost to 6.25 million after that. So that was nice being rewarded rather in post for something we did. So I would say at this point, most of my concerns for Gran Turismo 7 have been alleviated. And if you were thinking about getting it, don't. I think I would I'd take that back and say, if you're thinking about getting it at this point, it's worth it. They have absolutely done what they should have done, which tends to happen when people yell at you because you made a big decision that negatively impacted everyone.
Yeah.
So here we are. Next up on the docket, Kingdom Hearts 4 is announced. It got a trailer reveal last night at the 20th anniversary event that was happening in Japan. A lot of people were invited to it, but it was not originally given a live stream or anything. The trailer is out and about. Everyone can watch it, and there's no date or anything given. But you get a good look at what Kingdom Hearts is moving toward. And if you're a fan at all, you should check it out. Saul and I were having a conversation before the episode whenever I showed him the trailer because he thought, and I get it, I would have thought too that it wasn't going to happen. Well, but I think with E3 not happening this year and all these different things going on, why not show it here? And then it ended up being that way. But Saul, you had a point about your feeling of Square Enix lately, and let you take away with that.
Well, I'll get to that later.
Okay.
What I'm the most surprised about is this is the first Kingdom Hearts game ever to come out without a side game in between.
Yep.
Well, they announced two games, didn't they?
Not that I saw.
They
might have.
I thought they did.
But this is unless you count Remind.
I mean, I wouldn't count Remind. That was essentially just, I guess you could, but it's really Remind was
not a side game.
The only real story content was the reworking in a weird sense of like giving a new perspective to the ending of the first game of Kingdom Hearts 3, and then all the data boss battles.
I was just thinking back to it.
And then the new content after you beat the final data boss.
The girl in the trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4 was talking to the story about how this is a place people go while passing.
Mm-hmm. That's Strelitzia.
Who?
That's a character from. That's one of
probably a side game.
It's one of the original masters.
This is my problem with up-to-date Kingdom Hearts stuff. But
I think Strelitzia is Marluxia's sister, if I remember right.
Oh, that's cool.
The original Marluxia. I can't remember his name right now.
But Donald and Goofy are looking for him.
Mm-hmm.
That explains why that's Hades in the cave. Because he's in they're on the way to the
they're going
underworld.
To hell.
Because he's dead.
Yeah.
That just now occurred to me. But yeah, the trailer looks really good. I am. Kingdom Hearts 3 did not leave the greatest taste in my mouth. No, I did not play Remind, and that may have helped.
Remind does make it better.
Okay.
Which is unfortunate, but you know.
Yeah. So I'll do what I normally do before any new Kingdom Hearts game. I'll replay the whole series up until this point, and have to inevitably watch hours upon hours of videos about mobile games that I would not touch.
I would. That's absolutely the way to go.
Yeah, I would
just to
not.
Throw that out
I refuse to play those games.
I don't even think you can anymore. I'm pretty sure the games have been taken down.
Okay, well that's you know what, that's even more fitting for Kingdom Hearts. To be honest, that is making it harder to understand the story because games are getting taken down is right in line with everything else Kingdom Hearts does.
It may not have been taken down. It may have been they gave it a final update to where essentially you can go on and it's not online anymore. I can't remember, but it was something to that degree.
Well, and then I'll be up to date to know who she was.
But yeah, dude, playing through the phone game would not have been the way to actually get that information.
There's two phone games, isn't there?
There was.
Or three? Or just two?
The main one that gave all the information for the Masters of Masters stuff was Union Cross. And the problem with that game is I actually liked it. It was kind of fun, but you would only get story revelations like every 20 to 30 levels. And sometimes even longer. So it would be like they'd update the game in chunks, and then you'd have to play like 100 levels to get the story arc out for that. And it took forever. And then it would be a small story arc, and it'd be like, okay, a month from now, we're going to give another story update. And it was like, it's cool story stuff, but it's like, it feels like you're just dragging to get to it, you know?
Yeah.
After you play. So it's like, you're like level 1600 in a mobile game, and you're just like, is this Candy Crush or what, you know?
Right. And that's... I think I did play a little bit of Union X Cross, and I don't remember much of it.
I got to where I was just watching people who were doing the Japanese version, and then because it's text-based, they would just edit the English text into the spot, and I would just watch the story that way.
Okay.
And it was a lot easier.
Well,
and really cool stuff.
And for those that don't know Kingdom Hearts,
they did announce two games for the record.
So what's the other game?
Was
it that puzzle
Link.
game?
I don't know.
I'm gonna look at that
just
because
know there's two games announced.
I'm gonna look it up because I saw someone post it was like a match game thing, and
it's a mobile game.
It's a mobile game. I'm not exactly sure what it is.
Kiki wants to argue that this is less complicated than the MCU.
What?
4
Wait,
phone games. Well, Brett looks it up. I'll pull up his tweet.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I'm just want to see what type of game it is, because this is like that's the art style for the original.
Yeah, that's Union X Cross art style.
Mm-hmm.
But
and it looks like this is going into something more.
For those that don't know, I am a massive fan of Kingdom Hearts. But it's been exhausting to keep up with the story the way that they want you to, and I've fallen off of caring about it. I honestly, Chain of Memories is probably one of my favorite Game Boy Advance games.
It is weird that actually the side games for Kingdom Hearts are really good.
Chain of Memories and Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop Distance are all phenomenal games.
358 over 2 days is also good.
I never got a chance to play that one. That was the one that only came to the
DS.
No, I mean, like, it came to the remastered version, but only as a movie, right?
Yeah, and actually, I mean, the game is good too, but the story content is what's actually really great.
That focuses about the nobodies, right?
Yeah, it's specifically about Roxas's time in the organization
and Axel, too.
How he met Xion and Axel.
Yeah, it's just as I've gotten older, it's the story wrapped up pretty well at 3 for me. So I didn't care about Remind at all, even though I will probably eventually play it. So I am excited to figure out what it is and to get back into it. I got to be in the right mindset for it.
Okay, this is interesting. Why does this almost look like a... Okay.
Why couldn't you play the whole video like that?
This is odd.
It looks like
it doesn't look bad at all. It actually looks far more like a normal Kingdom Hearts game on phone than anything else they've done.
Yeah. Also,
we're back to Tangled.
Dude, I don't know if you caught it, but the subheadline you were just in a second ago said that this was unveiled on Unreal Engine 4. Did I say that it was going on Unreal Engine 5? Does that mean Nomura has never stayed with one game engine?
What are you talking about for Kingdom Hearts 4?
Yeah.
So to be Unreal 4?
Yeah, and then I think it said in something I just saw on your screen a second ago about it will be in 5, which that's perfect.
Well, this is maybe Missing Link is Unreal 5. I doubt that they would go to Unreal 5 right now for Kingdom Hearts 4 just because of the development time that would take to shift when they have all the Kingdom Hearts 3 systems built in 3 finally, or built in Unreal 4. Who knows? Yeah, Missing Link looks fine. I mean, it's always the thing of what important story elements will be given out in a phone game. That's always the question you have to ask yourself. Square keeps trying to make phone games happen, and I guess to some degree they are because they make money off of them. So, is what it is. It's some.
Oh, dude, yeah, it is. Kingdom Hearts 4 announced we'll move to Unreal Engine 5. So Nomura has never stayed with the original game engine a game has been designed on, except for one, right?
My curiosity really here is the original Kingdom Hearts were their own engines.
Yeah.
My real curiosity here, and I was wondering this for other games, because while we're talking about Unreal 5, there was a bunch of games that moved to Unreal 5. Striker moved. So isn't it? Hold on, what's it called? Is it called Striker?
That does not sound familiar to me at all in any capacity. Is it a game?
No,
or a character?
No, hold on. Stalker. My brain is dead. Stalker 2 moved to Unreal 5, if I'm not mistaken.
The PC? The PC, the one that got delayed?
The one that got delayed. It's coming to consoles too.
Yeah. But, I was going to say it was originally only on PC.
Yeah, the original Stalker was. That moved to Unreal 5. Sinuous Saga, or whatever they're calling the new Hellblade game, was originally started development under Unreal 4 and then moved to Unreal 5.
The game was unveiled like 4 years ago.
And this is a question for development that I don't really understand. How hard is it to move from Unreal 4 to 5?
It might be really
Since it's
easy.
the same engine, do most of your systems just up and move, and then the system just has more that you can do?
Maybe just the assets get updated?
Well, one of the reasons I say is it depends on how custom of their version of Unreal was, because if y'all remember, the Arkham games were on Unreal 3, and Arkham Knight did not move to Unreal 4 because they had built up a lot of custom systems within 3 that they didn't want to have to rebuild for 4.
Right.
So to me, I guess it just depends on what you're doing. and how you want to get there. I don't know. One of the things they talked about for Unreal 4 for Kingdom Hearts 3 when they moved it, that they had to give it the Kingdom Hearts shader or the Kingdom shader is what they called it, and that's what gave it the art style look,
which is kind of absent in this trailer, but it's almost,
which might be a purposeful move.
Well, I was gonna say it looks fine without it.
I think it looks better if I'm being dead honest. I thought 3 looked fine. It's a good looking game, but I actually like this more.
It loses some identity, but then it makes it feel refreshed.
Yeah.
It feels like Darkseeker Saga is finally over and it's done, and this is a new chapter.
Yeah, and you can give it that style, that style change. I agree.
So I'm excited for it.
Give it a tone.
Chris, are you a big Kingdom Hearts fan?
Clearly,
no. I'd rather die than talk about this anymore.
All right, Chris. Well, this entire episode has just become what we want out of Kingdom Hearts 4.
Sick. I gotta go to
Kingdom
work.
Hearts 5.
Yeah, what we wanted of Kingdom Hearts 4.5. The loves that binds.
Dream Drop Nightmare.
Yeah.
This is a dream job nightmare for me, yes.
Either way, I am curious. So, real question though, Saul, you were talking about Square's games being. I do want to talk about that because I think that one was kind of interesting. How since Final Fantasy
7 remake,
you feel like most of Square's output hasn't been great.
I feel like that's the one outlier in the past 5 to 10 years of their AAA titles.
We didn't get to that point already. Yeah, gotcha. So
it's rare for me to have a AAA Square game come out and me be excited for it anymore. 7 was the one, and if you recall, I wasn't actually even. I was excited for 7, but I had a ton of doubt about 7.
You did.
So even then, I don't have any doubts about Kingdom Hearts because I don't think there's ever been a Kingdom Hearts I was not, other than mobile games, that I was not excited to a capacity to play.
Yeah.
I've always been excited to play about a Kingdom Hearts game. Final Fantasy games are a little different. I was not really excited to play. Actually, I was incredibly excited to play 15. That's one of the reasons why I was disappointed by it so badly. I was actually excited to play Type O.
Yeah,
because
PSP game.
It came out to PS4. Yeah, Seth got it, and Seth hated it, and I was like, "Oh, it's not that bad." And then it is that bad.
It's far too dated to bring to a console.
Yeah,
that needed to be a handheld game.
It's a handheld game. If it came out on Switch, I might give it another try for like $5 or $10.
If they would have put that out on Vita at the exact date that they did, it would have done better, I think.
But yeah, it's just. I guess I should say not so much Square, but a little bit of Square, but mainly just mainline Final Fantasy games. I am incredibly excited for 16. But
16 looks great.
Yeah, it's just weird. Not Final Fantasy, but AAA.
We have not a lot of information on 16, so it's weird.
But going off the visuals of the trailer and like how it looks like it's going back to some roots.
It kind of feels weird, but at this point, don't we have roughly the same amount of information for Kingdom Hearts 4 now as we do for Final Fantasy 16?
No. Well, hold on. Yeah, because there was gameplay in the Final Fantasy 16 trailer. There's gameplay in that one.
That's what I mean. Like in terms of what they've done, it's been one trailer with a good bit of information to start you off.
If there's a difference, it's not massive.
Yeah, which the big thing I think needed to change for them out of their actual, because like one of the things you brought up earlier is Square's output with things like Stranger of Paradise, which has very mixed reviews, Babylon's Fall, which clearly is not doing very hot at all, and it's interesting because those are definitely Square Enix. But at the same time, they're essentially like AA style Square Enix, and both of those games were not made by Square Enix's internal teams.
You know what's weird though? Maybe it's not a AAA problem with Square Enix. Maybe it's just okay. So here's an example. The other day, I went to go download Final Fantasy VIII, and on my Switch. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to download, or I'm going to look and see what all Final Fantasy stuff they have. Maybe the Pixel Remaster slipped in and I didn't notice.
Yeah, sure.
So of course it came up with Final Fantasy, 7, 8, 10, 12, 9. It came with like all the major ones. And then it got into these, I don't remember what game it was for, but it was all these outfits and stuff for another Final Fantasy game. Like $2 outfits, $1 outfits of stuff, and I don't remember what it was for. But see, that right there to me, the same thing they kind of did with 15 of having like an external marketplace of stuff you could buy is
you mean for like the DLC stuff that went on?
Like because you could buy you can go to PlayStation Marketplace and find like Final Fantasy 15 outfits and stuff you could buy for.
Could you?
Them.
I didn't know that.
Pretty sure. And it just feels so far off from what Square Enix actually. Oh, I'm used to seeing Square Enix that it just feels like a different company, if that makes sense. Not necessarily in a bad way, just in a different way. Yes, Ikaruga. I know you're.
Yeah, if they've got outfits for 15, I miss that. I know most of the monetization around that was this idea of expanding the universe and having DLC that tied to it, which I thought some people thought was contentious, which is it's weird because like I think it's a good way to expand the universe, but at the same time, having all that story being the main game would have been weird because it wouldn't. None of it really goes towards the main storyline. It's more like if you want to learn more about these characters, here's a side story, which is probably the right way to have approached it.
Okay, so yeah, Final Fantasy 15 had outfits, samurai garb.
Yeah.
It had weapons, music you could buy, like you could buy a Blaze Fire Saber, which it's 50 cents, but it says it's a gunblade. So apparently, they added weapons that you could just go and buy externally. This is really weird to see Square Enix do this kind of. I say it's weird. It's just different.
Yeah,
and it's the episodes I've talked about those at length that I thought that should have been stuff that was included in the base game. The multiplayer, just not bad, just odd that it kind of came out with a Monster Hunter style thing. You got like a noodle helmet outfit you could buy. it's so interesting that it almost doesn't feel like the ethics of it, like I said, are not bad, but it doesn't feel like Final Fantasy when you separate it from the game specifically.
Okay.
Because I could argue that Final Fantasy 15, other than the car, the overworld stuff didn't actually feel like a Final Fantasy game. Like in terms of like the NPC interactions, the market interactions, the little side things you do like fishing. Little like in the very beginning of the game, you have a little side quest you do for a cat to go catch a fish. That feels like something that would be in a classic Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's just interesting to me.
Yeah, well, we'll see whether they can rebuild. Obviously, Forspoken is going to be, I think, for a lot of people, this feeling of like, what is Square's next gen output and how's their turnaround going to be? I'm curious how long it'll be before we see this because it's been 2019 for Kingdom Hearts 3. So could we see this by next year? Kingdom Hearts 4? We'll see. But I know that Chris is, even though we weren't necessarily talking about Kingdom Hearts right there, but Chris is ready to move on, I know for sure. So Chris, instead, we're going to talk about Jack Tretton, who said in a recent interview with Axios that he wishes that Sony had supported the PS Vita more. He cited the handheld as something that was orphaned by the company. He goes on to say that he thought it just came too late with the industry moving on to portable devices that did more than just play games. Considering that in 2022, the Switch still reigns supreme and the Steam Deck is seemingly a giant success, this may be the time for a new Sony handheld, and the company seems to agree if rumors are to be believed. You know, this is an interesting thing because I would argue that the PS Vita and the PSP both did far more than just play games. And
I see that quote there is automatically to me just like that's I had to Google what the PS Vita release date because I'm like in 2012.
2012 was when it came out.
I had an iPhone 3 in like 2009 or 10. Mm-hmm. They could already do more than just a phone because I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of the things
I don't agree with that statement at all.
Like, if you look at like even the PSP, go back some years, the PSP could do movies, games, internet browser,
it
music.
literally came with a demo disc with movie trailers and music videos on it.
Yeah, that seems really odd. You could you could look at pictures and store stuff.
You could set pictures as backgrounds.
I mean, I think what he might have been trying to say is like portable devices, but I don't know because when he calls portable devices, I mean. 3DS still went on to be a success, 50 million units sold, 54, something like that, and probably even increased since then. But the last time I remember checking, which is a long time ago, it was Switch is already out, but it was at 50-something million
that was
units.
4 years. Yeah, it was 4 years later, though. And the time that the PS Vita came out, it was... first of all, it offered a cellular version of that, which was way ahead of any kind of handheld gaming at its time.
Mm-hmm. Even though, sadly, 3G just wasn't fast enough.
Yeah, wasn't there a lawsuit involved in that, a class action?
I think so, because you couldn't really do remote play with 3G no matter what.
Yeah, but anyways, like this is something I've been talking about for years, is that it's like if Sony came out with a handheld and I could play classic games on it, like PS1 and PS2 games, on top of originals that they could make, it's an instant buy from me. Do it.
What I think is weird is that as much as the cell phone stuff was angry, I think if you remember when the Vita was shown, what got them kind of little sighs in the room was that they were exclusively partnering with AT&T to do so for the mobile stuff. I 100% mean this. if you came out with a new successor to the Vita today, that regardless of what carrier I had, which is kind of hard because the reason it's actually hard is there's two different types of cell phone providers. There is GSM providers, which is what the majority of the world has, and AT&T is a GSM provider. And then you have Verizon, which is CDMA or whatever it's called, and those are entirely different types of chipsets.
Right.
So it's really hard to make a device that can be both. They do exist. It costs more money, and that kind of was what makes it complicated. It would almost seem to me that at some point, don't do it to where it's locked to AT&T. You can still do it with anybody, but essentially, here's our new handheld. It's a GSM phone, and any GSM carrier across the world, you can tie it into that and then play it. Because having 5G or 4G LTE or any of that thing, which actually can do streaming and stuff pretty well, and therefore multiplayer pretty well, having that on the go would actually make handheld devices so much more useful.
Yeah, you saw how fast I downloaded War of the Lions on network. It took me less than a minute.
Yeah. A small game.
But I mean, just as an example, that's on the go anywhere. Like you decide, like, oh, I want to download Resident Evil 1.
Like the promise of cell service on a handheld device or handheld gaming device, because I mean, you could get cell service on an iPad. But point being, it's on specifically a gaming focused device. That's a fantastic idea that nothing has done since the Vita. The Vita just did it too early, and it's another feather in Sony's cap of having good ideas before they're technically sound, and then abandoning them whenever it becomes something that's easy to do. Because like having the ability to play your games on the go on the Vita is a great idea, and it worked all right, sometimes better than other. And then the Switch is like, well, we're just going to have it to where you can play the same game that way. And then Microsoft saying, hey, you can just stream the games. Sony did that with PS Now, did it with the Vita, but it was all technically inferior versions, but they were the first people to do the idea in the gaming thing. And it's just unfortunate that Sony does that, has a great idea, does it too early, fails, and then never tries it again, and then lets someone else pick up the mantle and actually do the great version that they could have iterated upon and then been like, hey, here it is, we got it.
Well, and all of that, it's like there's solutions to that too. Like, so if you don't want, let's say if you don't want wireless, I don't think it's uncommon for people to be able to do Wi-Fi tethering.
Yeah.
Or hotspotting, aka. The day I was sitting at work, and when I was talking about downloading Final Fantasy VIII, I did it at work on lunch, and I just turned my hotspot on my phone on, and then I was like, okay, it took 5-10 minutes to download.
Yeah. But, for convenience sake, I would, for an extra $5 a month or whatever, I would pay just to have my gaming device on my cell service just so that my data pool gets pulled. I have unlimited anyway.
Yeah.
But, same basic idea. So we'll see. Do you guys really, truly believe that there is another handheld at least being seriously looked at in their R&D department?
X-Files. I want to believe.
All right, Chris, you wrote the news, so do you agree with? Do you think the rumors are to be believed or not?
I think there's a good possibility, but I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't true. No.
Yeah, I think that they would clearly have to have been looking at it in the R&D aspect of things, but I doubt it's ever moved past that. I doubt they've ever really moved towards talking to developers about anything. They might have given the old, what would you like in a handheld device from us? What do you feel like Switch doesn't offer you?
Yeah.
They might have gotten that far.
Which honestly, the crazy thing is like, I could say, like, compared to the Switch, a new modern day handheld device from any other, or as a hardcore feature, cellular would be one of the things that they could add that realistically, there's a short list there. Like, what else would you add? Like as an actual, like, a feature.
Yeah, Switch brought a lot of it. Dual analog sticks, clickable analog sticks, L2R2.
Yeah, like, do you get into the weeds about like screens and stuff like that, resolutions, but then you got to worry about performance and battery life. So that's kind of off. But yeah, like as an actual feature that I don't think cellular would impact battery life. If you, like me, I turn my thing on airplane mode.
It would, but not in a massive way.
For me, like I play my Switch entirely on handheld mode, and then I need to download a game. Okay,
airplane mode. Right?
Yeah. What I say?
Handheld mode.
Oh yeah, airplane mode. So I'm like, if I need to download a game, go download a game. Or if I want to play with Bluetooth headphones, because airplane mode cuts off Bluetooth, I turn off airplane mode, pop my Bluetooth headphones, and I'm sitting there playing.
Sure. Yeah.
Same thing could be done if I had wireless network. I mean, cellular network.
All right. Well, let's see how things end up going. And I'm almost curious if Steam, well, clearly Switch is a massive success, but that's Nintendo. And it's got the weight of Nintendo behind it. I wonder if Sony's like legitimately eyeing the Steam Deck to be like, if the Steam Deck, free of Nintendo and the fanfare that Nintendo has built around its products. If the Steam Deck can exceed, then maybe our handheld can. But then you run the risk of putting out a handheld when there's enough competitors in the market that somebody might choose them over you. That's hard to say. All right, so one thing that we didn't do, sadly, today in our rush to get going is agree upon a topic that we wanted to fully do the show with. So no time like the present to just throw that out there. What do you guys want to talk about?
I don't know. You guys went on for 8,000 years about Kingdom Hearts, so...
Well, we went on for 8,000 years about Square Enix, but yes.
That could be the topic. Current Square Enix. That could be community's take for next week is people's current opinions on modern day Square Enix.
Yeah, I mean, we just have this be
once again.
A shorter
I don't have negative. I don't have negative thoughts about Square Enix.
Yeah.
Let me know if Origin Paradise, what it was called,
Strangers of Paradise, Stranger of Paradise,
Origin. See, I thought that was a remake of Final Fantasy 1, but Josh said it's a prequel.
Yes,
but to me, But how does that make sense? Am I wrong?
You talking about how it's a prequel to 1?
Yeah.
Well, the story of 1 is just that I guess at this point you can't really spoil 1, but if I'm remembering right,
it's crystals and bad guy.
Well, hold on. In the story of 1, that at the end you become Garland. And it's just a cycle. And every time the Warriors of Light who come on and defeat Garland, one of them becomes the new Garland.
Are you telling me? Never mind.
So in a weird way, this could be a prequel or a sequel or a remake because essentially you're just putting the camera on one part in the cycle in any infinite amount of the cycles. I almost think it would be more interesting if it was a sequel and it was them coming and realizing that the previous Warriors of Light were. And maybe it is. To be fair, having not played the game, I have no clue what it is.
Yeah, I played. The last time I played Final Fantasy 1 was 1 and 2 Dawn of Souls collection on Game Boy Advance.
I played it on PSP, and that's the only time I've ever played 1 all the way through. I played it as a kid on PS1, but I never beat it. I got very, very little through it.
See, I definitely beat it on. I beat all of them when they were on Game Boy Advance because they had 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that's the story for 1. Is that it's a cycle.
What a weird! I just now realized what a weird coincidence that one.
Chris, you bought Stranger of Paradise, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Okay, I may try it.
What a weird coincidence that one Nintendo handheld had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then the other one had 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yeah,
or 7, 8, 9, 10, 12.
There it is. All right, well, guys, I think in this situation where we don't have an immediate topic that we're wanting to go to, we're just going to wrap it up and have a short episode today.
Yeah, we won't push it on anybody. Chris has work. I got to do some drapery. That sounds really weird, but it's really true.
All right.
And I'm also getting hungry. I'm sure y'all are too.
I am getting hungry.
For those that don't know, you can find us on YouTube if you want to see our beautiful faces over at Nartech, or just type in Triangle Square to PlayStation Podcast. You can find us on Facebook as a group called Triangle Square to PlayStation Podcast. You can find our Discord linked in the description below, or you can follow us on Twitter at Triangle SQRD. And if you're a super fan of the show and you just want to help us be supported, you could give us $1 a month at patreon.com/Nartech, where you get a cool amount of little rewards, including stuff in our Discord server. And just being any tier of a Nartech patron, you get your name read out in a credit style at the very end. So make sure everybody sticks around for that. And as always, we'll see you guys next week for whatever episode is next. I'm so thrown off on what it is. 257. So thank you all for joining for 256, and we'll see you next time.
All right, guys. A huge shout out to our patrons, Lecheon69, one of our newer patrons, Jason Clendenning for resubbing. We have the Lord Corgi, Salvador Garcia, Hammond Egger, Bailey Robertson, Rob Warppoint, Mark Schutz, Cypher Primus, Jason Clendenning, as I mentioned, Kyle Grimm, Rude Days 93, Joshua Lago, Kevin Bacon Bits, Luke Rabbit, Danny Villalobos, Solitary Red, Jehudi MD, Sean, Josh Ayers, Derek Porter, Constantly Kenny, Matthew Green, Sean Santarude, Steven Salazar, Shadowist, and my name is Dan. Thank you all.